GCC Career Services.
Hello and welcome to Glendale Community College's speaker series. We are excited to have you join us live from home.
GCC Career Services.
We have a new soundbite and it was on a loop. So my name is Lindsay Walker. I'm the Experiential and Community-Based Learning Coordinator from GCC's Career Services Office. Today we're looking forward to talking with our first speaker of our fall series for 2022. Our goal is to get different perspectives from industry leaders to share their leadership experience and transformation from college to leadership. Before we get started, for our audience members watching, please feel free to add questions in the comment section, and we can include those towards the end before we close up time with our guest speaker. To kick it off, my colleague Graciela is going to introduce today's guest speakers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super happy to introduce Mauri Garcia. She is a lead compliance officer in the finance industry. As a compliance officer, she is responsible for ensuring that the company complies with regulatory and legal requirements, internal policies, and bylaws to mitigate regulatory risks, which aids consumer protection and satisfaction. Mauri has over 10 years of banking experience. She started as a branch teller, and her inquisitive nature led her to financial crimes investigations. Throughout her career, she has led investigation teams and worked cases related to money laundering, terrorist financing, insider trading, bribery, human trafficking, elder abuse, Ponzi schemes, and additional anti-money laundering fraud typologies. Mauri graduated from the University of Arizona, go Wildcats. She earned her bachelor's degree in social and criminal justice, summa cum laude. Mauri is a Salvadoran descent and a first-generation American. She enjoys traveling domestically and internationally during her free time. Photography and floral design are her favorite hobbies. She also enjoys attending industry conferences, volunteering in her community, and supporting local businesses. Mauri prides herself in being a community advocate who fights for change and partners with local grassroots organizations, leading and building a sustained political power with low-income and BIPOC communities in Arizona. She finds joy through advocacy, service, and philanthropy.
Thanks, Graciela, and welcome, Mauri. It's great to have you join us. Mauri, before we dive into your career and knowledge of leadership, we'd like to get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. Is it okay if we do some rapid fire questions that essentially you just say the first thing that pops into your head?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, here we go. What is one positive thing you do on a daily basis?
So one positive thing that I do on a daily basis is I do meditate, and that just allows me to center myself before I get started. And that also allows me to just spend time with myself before I start pouring in energy into others.
That's incredible. That's so smart. I'm trying to do that more as well. So tell us, what's your favorite fall food, if you have a favorite fall food?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so right now I'm like super into pumpkin spice. I bought like the seasoning at Trader Joe's. So I've been like sprinkling it in my yogurt, my lattes.
Classic. Love it. Okay, tell us your favorite travel destination.
That's a good one. So I've been to 12 countries so far. My most favorite country so far has been the Cook Islands. So it's in the South Pacific. It's right across from Hawaii. And so what I loved about it is that it's not as touristy as Hawaii, and the people are just so friendly. You literally have the island to yourself. It's really admirable to just how family oriented they are. You really feel like you belong there.
That's awesome. Now I want to go.
I know. I'm like, I need to get my passport.
Yes. Mauri, tell us, which leader do you admire the most? First person that pops into your head.
That's a good one. Okay, so Melinda Gates, I would say, because she's really just paved the way for other women. And anytime I hear her speak, it just empowers me and it inspires me to do more, because she just does so much, not just locally, but globally as well. So I just really admire the things that she does globally as well to fight some of those social issues.
That's great. Okay, last one. Fill in the blank. In one word, leadership is?
Leadership is rewarding. I had to think about it for a second.
No, that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll get started with our interview about college to leadership and the transformation that you've made. So Graciela, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Hi, Mauri. So tell us about yourself and your current position.
Yeah, so my current position, as a lead compliance officer, I pretty much just work with each line of business just to make sure that they're adhering to current policies. So providing feedback, meeting with senior leadership, presenting my findings, and throughout my career, I've also done investigations. So just working directly with investigators and just wanting to identify those risks and working with law enforcement as well and partnering to mitigate financial crimes.
Awesome. Thank you. What does success mean to you?
That's a good one. So for me, I feel like your definition changes over time. And for me, it's all about just creating a positive impact for those around me. And success to me is just having the freedom to design my own life and having the freedom to just use my time the way that I want to and positively impacting those around me. That's what success means to me.
All right. So what does it mean to be a leader?
To me, being a leader, I do believe that it's all about leading by example and also just kind of going back to what I just said, positively impacting those around me. So I want to make sure that the people around me can feel inspired and can take my story and say, oh, I can do that too. So I think being a leader is saying things that aren't being said and doing things that aren't being done. So in a way, creating that healthy challenge to challenge the status quo and just do things in a different way.
I like what you said about saying things that aren't really said, like kind of having that braveness to speak up about something, especially if it's just kind of taboo or not spoken about. I like that.
Yeah.
So I know as a human, that life comes with challenges. Have there been any barriers in your journey specifically to where you are in your leadership role?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the number one barrier that I've experienced that I'm actively actually still working on is imposter syndrome. I don't know what it is, but you sort of have this self-doubt and you feel like, do I even belong here? And when I first started my career, I was still finishing my college degree. And so in my mind, I was like, do I even belong here? I had the experience. Obviously, I was enough. I was worthy of that position, but I was surrounded by people that already had their advanced degrees. And so I started feeling a sense of imposter syndrome. And I had to take a step back and realize I do belong here. I have a seat at the table for a reason, and representation does matter. So people that look like me being able to see me in that position, I hope that inspired them to know that they can do it too. So that's one of the biggest hurdles, I would say, is imposter syndrome.
I have a question. Sorry, Graciela. I saw a question come in from the chat, and I believe it's referring to Melinda Gates. Would you say that Melinda Gates influenced you to fight social justices that you do now?
Yeah, definitely. I think so, because one of the most admirable things that I admire about her is she likes to empower young girls to be educated. And that is really important to me because I had a non-traditional path. So for me, I want to inspire other young girls to seek their education. And because once you seek your education, the possibilities are endless and you expand and then you start to help your community as well. So I would say that, yeah, that did inspire me to start fighting for certain social justice issues like access to education and poverty as well.
I love that. I just want to make a comment. I love the way you are being an advocate, because that's sort of how you caught my attention on social media. And I just really admire that. I love what you're doing. Continue to do it. And I think you're going to inspire so many people if you keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have another question. Should we go for it first before the next question? Yeah. Do you feel like there was something that you did or had to do to fight imposter syndrome? Was there a moment that you can recall that you felt like, yes, I can do this?
That's a good question. So I think what really did it for me is that I was seeking external validation. So that's where the imposter syndrome was coming from, is because I wasn't getting that validation externally, or when I would get it externally, like someone would tell me, obviously, hey, you're good enough, you're amazing, you're this. But until I started believing it for myself, that's when I was really able to combat imposter syndrome. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then that external validation doesn't matter. And if you can't validate yourself, then believing in yourself is everything. And so I think that's what I had to remember. It's like, I don't need external validation. I got this, and just really believing in my skills and in my talents. And it takes a village.
It really does. I feel like I can relate. In a new position, you also kind of just need that grace period, but also like that time to like build your confidence in your position that you were chosen to do, right?
Yeah.
So can you name a person who has had a tremendous impact on you as a leader? Maybe someone who has been a mentor to you? Why and how did this person impact your life?
Yeah, so I've been blessed with so many mentors, but I'll focus on a recent experience. So this is someone that I actually have the pleasure of calling a really good friend now, and we started as colleagues. So in my former position, when I first started, I was a consultant and we both worked together. And I just remember I was feeling that sense of imposter syndrome, right? And so I just remember there was a senior role that had become available and I wanted to apply for it, but I just wasn't really feeling ready. And she was already in that senior role. And so she kept encouraging me. She's like, you got this. And she actually sent a letter of recommendation to the hiring manager at the time. So she said all these amazing things about me of why I was qualified for the position. And I still didn't feel like I was qualified. I'm like, I don't have that certificate they're looking for. I don't have that advanced degree. Like I was really doubting myself, right? And so I just went for it. I went to the interview. I ended up getting the senior role. And to me, that just really inspired me because she made me realize that as a leader, it's really important to uplift others as you climb. So as you rise, as you climb up the ladder, it's really important to now help the people that are behind you. So that was really impactful for me, as just, wow, this person really sees in me what I can't even see in myself right now.
I love that. We all need people like that, right? To hype us up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I have a question kind of off script. I noticed that you went to U of A for social and criminal justice. Was this your end goal to be in the kind of the finance auditing? I don't know what the industry for the job that you do, but did you ever think you'd be in that role? Is that what you were going for? Or were there some circumstances and opportunities that led to that role?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I kind of just like landed here, started off as a teller, and then I kind of just like kept moving up the ladder. And then once I decided to go back to school to finish my degree, everything was sort of online. I was part of the online program. And then that's when the light bulb hit, because I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of already in this compliance space. But now actually I'm studying for law school. So I am planning to be an attorney. That was sort of my goal for majoring in social and criminal justice, because I do want to be an attorney now, because I realized, okay, I really want to be of service to my community in a more powerful way and to really fight towards these social justice issues. I realized that, I want to be in those positions of power. I want to influence policy. So that's actually what I'm currently working on right now. And even though I've already kind of created my compliance career, that's what's kind of next for me right now.
That's good. We have a few other questions in the chat. So can you kind of clarify what imposter syndrome is for maybe those who might not know?
Yeah, definitely. So imposter syndrome is basically having the talent, having the skills, but still doubting yourself and feeling like you're just not adequate enough. So really just sort of not even seeing that you're worthy, not even being aware of the talents and skills that you have. And you start feeling like, oh, wow, like everyone is going to know now that I'm not qualified for this role. But in reality, you are qualified for the role. But when imposter syndrome kind of sits in your mind, you're like, oh no, everyone's going to find out I'm not even qualified for this. I'm not even supposed to be here. That's sort of like the fear. And yeah, it's silly. It's not even true. These are just feelings of inadequacy that are false. And in reality, you do have what it takes. You are enough.
Exactly. I feel like we all need that reminder, because we, again, kind of have those experiences where we do feel that. And once we do finally see our worth, like game changer, right?
And then you're like, what have I been doing this whole time? This is so silly. Or you see someone that's already in that role and you're like, oh, wow, I actually have what they have and some more as well.
Exactly. We have another question. From what you learned in college, how much of it did you actually end up applying in your career?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good one. So I think the most valuable thing that I learned in college is just presentation skills. That was huge for me, because in my current career, I do have to present a lot. So I feel like presenting a lot in the classroom really like set me up for success in the workplace, and then collaboration as well. So in the classroom you're collaborating with your peers, you're collaborating with your professors, and that's really important in the workforce because you have to learn how to collaborate with each other and also be open to different perspectives. And I think that's another valuable thing that I learned from college is that you're always encouraged to research, right? You're always encouraged to read diverse opinions so that you don't get stuck in this loop where you have your own biases. So that's probably the most valuable thing that I learned as well, is to always research, always be open to different opinions. And also just like the different criminal justice courses that I took, that also helped me collaborating with law enforcement because I was familiar with a lot of the terms, and now I'm doing these investigations and just learning how the system works. That was really helpful for me as well.
That's great. I know, especially when you are able to work with so many different personalities and, like you said, perspectives. I think that is such a strong skill because no matter where we work, there will always just be a diverse group of people that you have to work with, collaborate with. And I'm just so happy that you mentioned that.
Thank you. Yeah. And as a leader, I think that's important too, because you want to be able to make everyone feel seen and heard and value everyone you come across, right? Everyone has a different skill set, different set of experience. So it's really important to familiarize yourself with that and realize that we are our greatest commodity. The greatest commodity that we have is each other. So, yeah.
These are great. And honestly, the audience is being incredibly participatory. So thank you to the people putting comments in the chat box. A couple more questions just came in. So some people want to know, how long did you go to school before you applied for your career? And then kind of add on to that, when you were applying to your career, how long was the application process and just what was that like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when I first started as a teller, that was probably my second year in college. I was still kind of figuring things out. I remember I was a psychology major. I was like, God, I really don't know what I want to do, kind of playing around with things. And then I also took a long break because at that time, because I was so confused and because I was juggling with a lot, I did have to take a long break. And so, yeah, so I started off as a teller, and then after that, I was an analyst. And as I started growing my career, I was fortunate enough to work for a company that was going to reimburse me for my tuition. And so then after that is when the light bulb kind of hit. I was like, okay, I want to do social and criminal justice now. And so altogether, I mean, the application process isn't too long. You really just have to get in there. Sometimes you have to just pay your dues and start as an analyst. And then after that, you sort of just start to network with people. So, I mean, it really just depends, I think, on the individual and what you are looking into doing. My best advice would be to not doubt yourself. I think oftentimes we see these positions and we see all the experience they're looking for or the advanced degree. But if you're really ambitious, if you're really eager to learn, that's all that really matters. You can literally learn anything. You can do anything you set your mind to. So I would say do not feel discouraged by what's on paper. Sometimes they kind of just have to put that there for HR. But if you're really wanting to learn this new industry, I would say just go for it. Let them know that you're eager to learn, that you learn quickly and you'll adapt and you can figure it out. So I would say for any industry, really, not even just banking or finance, just go for it. And you are enough now. And once you get your degree, you're even more valuable because you can apply what you've learned throughout your academic process into the workforce. All your skills will transfer.
That's great. Another question just came in too. And I'm very curious about this because Graciela and I both work in career services. How do you know if you can answer this in one of two ways, just generally or for yourself, but how do you know if a career is right for you or not? So in your experience, how do you know where you're at right now is the right choice versus other career options?
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like you'll know when you're in the right career space when you realize that you're no longer stuck, you're continuing to grow. So that's how I realized I was in the right career space because I consider myself a lifelong learner. So for example, even though I've already completed my degree, I'm literally still going to courses online. I watch webinars all the time. So I feel like that's when I realized I was in the right career field because I'm constantly learning new things. And so my brain is constantly busy now and I'm able to expand. I'm able to increase my salary if I want to. I can always shadow another line of business. So I think you'll know when you realize that, oh, wow, I'm not really stuck. I'm expanding my skill set. And then also you want to make sure to find balance, right? So if you're in school right now and you're juggling work and school, you want to find a place that truly values you and that truly creates that balance for you because some companies won't value that, and they won't realize the value that comes with your education. So you really have to find a place. It's no longer what can I do for this company, it's what can this company do for me, and how can this company help me reach these life personal goals that I have. So I think that's when you'll know.
That's great. I love that perspective because sometimes we can get stuck sometimes. So if you do feel like you're constantly growing, you feel like also supported through that company, you're in the right place and you can just kind of like thrive, right? So we have more questions. Should we keep going with these questions? Yeah. Okay. Did taking that break from college help you refresh your educational palette, or do you wish you kept going to school without stopping?
Yeah, so to be honest, I had a lot of personal stuff going on in my life. So I think that if it wasn't for those personal things, I honestly would have just kept going, because I feel like once I started again, I couldn't stop. I was like, okay, I'm in it for the long run now. I'm going for it. But because I had so many like personal things going on, I kind of had to take that break. But it was also good that I took that break, because during that break, I realized, oh, what am I rushing for? Who am I racing? Sometimes we're so caught up in being in competition or rushing, but there is no rush. You really have to embrace your path. You are on your own path to success, and it's going to look different from others. So I feel like I still reached my ultimate goal. But success is not linear. So really just embrace the journey that you're on, and take your time, because that's the most valuable lesson that I learned. And if I could go back, I probably would just keep going and not take that long break. But it is what it is. Sometimes life happens.
And I think sometimes we feel, oh, we have to do it a traditional route. And we're so like sometimes conditioned to saying, okay, right after high school, we have to go into college. We have to do college for this many years. But sometimes life does happen, and we just do need that small little break to kind of even help us refresh and get remotivated again, right?
Yeah.
I love you said success is not linear, because I feel like as students that are sitting in classes right now or at home doing, their schoolwork, they probably have an idea of like, well, for me to be successful, I need to go from here to here to here to here, right? But like you said, it's not linear. It can kind of go in phases and waves and things like that. Yeah. We're just getting some great questions here in the chat. So I'd love to hear, what is one of the most important things you've learned from a past leader? And I want to add on to that, because I've heard in a podcast that I really enjoy, if it was a really good thing or even a really bad thing that just you learned, right?
Yeah, so that's a good one. I'm glad that you said that, because I do want to focus on the bad and the good. So I think that when we see bad leadership, I hope that it teaches us what not to be. So one thing that I would say that I saw early on is micromanagement. And I realized that sort of suffocates the person. It doesn't allow the person to thrive. One of my leadership philosophies is to develop people. I love to see where people are at and develop them into who they ultimately want to be. And so I noticed very early on that micromanagement doesn't do that. It doesn't develop people, because then you start feeling suffocated. You don't thrive at all. And so that's one bad thing. And then a good thing is the opposite. I did notice a leader that wasn't a micromanager, that would just sort of let everyone contribute, and everyone was heard, our ideas were shared, and we ultimately ended up benefiting the company in that way, because we were really able to sit down and put creativity and innovation in the forefront. And that's really important, because sometimes we get comfortable with doing things a certain way, but there's more than one way to do things. So even in the classroom too, I would encourage everyone, if you see a better way to do something, speak up, share your ideas, and then that inspires other people to speak up and share their ideas too. So really just creating an environment where everybody feels comfortable to speak up and contribute their ideas. That's probably the most valuable thing that I've learned.
That's great. We have more questions. Do you have any advice for college students going fresh into the business world? Any mistakes you wish you would have avoided?
Yeah, I would say go in it with an open mind. Probably one of the biggest mistakes I had early on was not being receptive to feedback. So I used to be really sensitive. And anytime I heard something negative, I was like, oh no, like I did this wrong thing. And how do I overcome that? And I started getting in my head a lot, right? I'm like, I heard this negative thing, and that just impacted everything, right? I started doubting myself. But then I realized, you know what, let me shift that perspective. Actually, feedback is a gift, whether it's good feedback or bad feedback. And I feel like that's what has helped me get to where I'm at now, because no matter what role you reach, no matter what degree you earn, at the end of the day, there is always room for improvement. So I think that being open to feedback really just helps you grow as a person, and it helps you evaluate how to do things differently moving forward. So that's probably the most valuable thing I can tell students. And also, don't compare your journey. So just going back to what I said earlier, success is not linear. So don't get too hung up on comparing yourself to other people in your life or in the classroom. Just really focus on your own journey, and you can do anything you put your mind to. Trust me. Get out of your way.
I'm going to quote you on that. Get out of your way. That's so good. So I want to ask you, earlier you mentioned someone that had a tremendous impact on you as a leader. Have you always sought out mentorship? And if like, when did you realize like having mentors was important?
Yeah, definitely. I realized early on I have to credit my older sibling as well, because he was always my mentor growing up. Whether it was like my first job interview or going into school, he was always mentoring me, and that's when I saw the value of mentorship, because he was able to share all these insights with me because he had already done it, right? So he was sharing all these best practices with me. And once I entered the business world, same thing. I started to realize that wow, I'm learning so much on the job just by shadowing someone and just by asking them these questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Ask all the questions that you want. And I also just recommend that you want to also contribute back. So as a mentee, I then realized the value of being a mentor. So I would just, recommend to also mentor the other people that are in your life. And that just really allows you to also learn from them, because I've learned the most valuable lessons from my mentees as well as a mentor.
How do you think our students could connect to mentors? Like, what are some nuggets of advice you can give them to actually find someone to be a mentor?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. So I would just say LinkedIn is honestly a really powerful tool. So if you have a LinkedIn and if you know which industry you want to get into, just search for people, search for people in that company, look for the hiring manager and just say, hey, I'm looking to learn more about this thing. Can I pick your brain? Or even if you meet someone at a career conference, or if you meet someone at school, for example, even if you have like a professor, I would just say, go for it. I know it's sort of intimidating. It's kind of scary. Like, oh, wow. Like, I'm reaching out to this person. But at the end of the day, we're all just humans. I talk to people all the time, and, you're just go for it. Just come with a curious mind, come with questions, and people are more than happy to help you that way.
Sometimes it's the most least like unexpected person that you meet on campus or somewhere like at work, or like you said, a conference or a job fair, and you just make that connection, and then you're able to stay connected on LinkedIn, and then you have that forever connection, right?
Yeah, exactly.
After experiencing leadership, what type of leader do you consider yourself to be?
Yeah, so I really consider myself to be a transformational leader. I really like to develop people. I really just want to make sure that everyone is heard and valued. And I really like to keep creativity and innovation at the forefront, because by doing that, I really just enhance the organization and enhance the team in general. And I really just consider myself a servant leader as well. I just love being of service to others. And that is what success is to me, is just being able to positively impact people around me and inspire them.
That's great. I'm feeling inspired just by hearing you speak. Honestly, I'm over here like, yes, okay, let's do this.
Thank you.
Do we want to go back to script, Lindsay? What are the keys to developing the next generation of leaders in your world?
Yeah, so I would say the key is to create an environment where people can thrive, and creating an environment where you embrace everyone's intersectionalities, because you really want to make sure that people can show up as their full selves. And I think that's all about fighting imposter syndrome. You just want to create an environment where people are seen, people are supported, people feel comfortable coming into work and not having to hide who they are. And that's what really creates a successful team. And that's how we can create our future leaders, is by creating those opportunities for them.
That's great. We have another like leader type question. So as a leader, what do you do with someone who just won't get with the program or has a personal grudge against you?
Oh, yeah, that's really difficult. I have worked with some people like that. And I would just say, in those situations, what I do is I take myself out of the equation, and I realize that it's not personal. There might maybe be something that they're dealing with that they're now projecting. So I think the greatest advice as a leader is to just not give up on that person, take yourself out of the equation, and only focus on what you can control. And there's certain things that we can't control, right? So I think that's the best way to deal with that, is to just be patient with those type of people and really just hang in there, because you never know. In the end, you might actually end up influencing them. They might actually shift their perspective. And if they don't, then that's okay too. So
Yeah, you might have a breakthrough and then have like a great relationship going forward.
yeah.
So, how do you deal with feeling overwhelmed or stressed while dealing with work, family, school, and any other factors?
Yeah, so I can relate to that. I think that going back to meditation, I've been meditating a lot because I'm really able to center myself and really just taking time for self-care, because the better I take care of myself, then the better I can serve those around me. I feel that if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I'm not getting the right nutrients, if I'm not eating right, then what good am I to others? I'm not really going to be my full self. I can't pour energy to others if I can't pour energy into myself. So I would say that it's just really important to take care of yourself, take a step back, learn boundaries, really set boundaries. It's really difficult at first because you feel like you're letting people down. And sometimes people might not be receptive to your boundaries, but it's okay to set those boundaries with your family and friends. Really just focus on your goal and where you want to be, and evaluate who you have in your life and who's going to help you reach those goals and who's going to inhibit you, because oftentimes our interpersonal relationships can inhibit us. So really just kind of doing an audit in your life, right? Like, who's helping me reach my goals and who's not. And unfortunately, sometimes, it is what it is. We have to part ways. We're going to outgrow people, and that's what life is about, to get to your ultimate destination.
I love that. I think we've all had to kind of filter out some things in our lives to kind of better ourselves. And I think we're also trying to constantly find ways to bring self-care into like the workforce. I know I try my best to block off lunch hours, like sometimes we get in habits where we don't even eat lunch, right?
Or in your desk, you're like.
Yeah, exactly.
I love what you said, Mauri, just about centering yourself, getting yourself like to a place where you're able to lead and take yourself out of the equation and all that stuff. I was listening to a podcast the other day and I heard this quote, and I want to see what you think about it, because I just had never heard of it that way, put that way before. But leadership is about managing energy first in yourself and then in others. What do you think about that?
That's a good one. Oh, that's amazing. I think that what it's trying to say is that, like, you're going to project certain energies on others. So you really have to just focus on fostering positive energy, because you don't want to foster negative energy onto others. And I think leadership is all about pouring in that positive energy into others and then sharing your light. And then that then inspires the other person to share their light and to feel uplifted by your energy.
I love that. Also, great job to everyone that's putting questions in the chat. Appreciate it. We have a question that says, as a leader, how do you keep motivation up while keeping productivity up? Can you give an example that relates to your career plans?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say that sometimes the motivation is not going to be there, unfortunately. So what I do to always be consistent and to remain productive is I remind myself that it's okay to not feel motivated, but I remind myself that it is important to stay consistent. So by staying consistent, I'm able to maintain that productivity, and the motivation will come back eventually, but you are going to have those days and those periods where you might not be motivated. And that's why it's important to just center yourself, remember your why, remember why you're doing things, right? And I also just want to emphasize that to be a leader, you don't need a fancy title. We're all leaders, whether it's in the classroom, your homes, your community, we're all leaders. So really just remembering your why and why you're leading. And yeah.
On that note, what wisdom can you share with our students who are completing their degree and embarking on their leadership journey?
Yeah, so I would just say, continue, keep going. Even through the dark times, you're going to find your light. Keep going. Find your community, find people that uplift you, and stay centered. And don't believe the noise. There's going to always be people that are going to doubt your mission, but it's okay. You don't need that external validation, and continue to stay on the path that you're on, and don't compare yourself to others, and stay consistent. And you can literally set your mind and do anything that you want to do.
I love that. I think we're all trying to find our light. Every day is different, but when we find our light, we take off and we thrive. I know that sometimes there are moments where even if you're just a college student or you're like an employee, there are moments where you just need that moment to just kind of quiet out the noise around you. But when we find those moments, they are amazing. So how do you deal with language or cultural barriers in the workplace, and not just with you, but between other employees?
Yeah, that's a good one. I definitely struggled with that. I still struggle with that because English was actually my second language. My first language was Spanish. And so I struggled a lot in the classroom when I was younger because I moved from California to Arizona. So in California, all my teachers were speaking to me in Spanish, right? And then I come to Arizona and everyone's speaking English. So luckily I, learned the language early on. But then once I entered the workforce, it was a little bit difficult because it's interesting because when I was a teller, I actually did have to leverage my Spanish language skills because I did have Spanish customers coming in. But in the classroom, sometimes I did begin to struggle again in college. And so how I deal with that, whether it's in the classroom or, in my current leadership role, I just really make sure to listen. I really make sure to value that person. I let people feel less than, and I remind them that that's actually a strength. It's not a barrier. It's a strength, right? It's a strength to know multiple languages and can always be improved. So I really just, value the person and show them that it's a strength and go from there. And I really enjoy embracing everyone's intersectionalities. And that's what really creates a good team because everyone just feels valued.
I know I'm currently trying to strengthen my Spanish skills, so I can't wait to fully be able to tell people that I am bilingual and can speak Spanish and English. But that's a lifelong journey too. Let's see. So what can students do today to get them on the path to success and leadership?
Yeah, classroom and continue to share your ideas. Don't be afraid to share your ideas and don't be afraid to connect with other people. And if there is a field that you're interested in, I would look into local conferences, find people on LinkedIn, just find different webinars that are sharing information. It's all about, just learning what you need to learn and just finding those resources because it's all about resources, right? And so I was even looking on the GCC website, the career department. You guys have like amazing resources. So I would say even go to the GCC career website and look into the events, the amazing events that you guys have, and go from there and just keep an open mind because you never know. So for example, like even if you do have a career in mind right now, who knows, maybe once you're in there and learning about it, the light bulb might hit. You might actually realize something else that you might be interested in. And I think that's what's so powerful about networking and speaking to people and researching what you need to research for that certain position or degree program, because that's when you start to find.
Well, thank you so much, Mauri, for taking the time to just be with us and speak with us and share your knowledge and wisdom. We really enjoyed hearing your transformational journey of college to leadership. Honestly, it was so nice to just get to know you a little more and share as much as you can with our viewers today. Thank you so much. Is there any last words that you might have?
I mean, I just want to encourage everyone to just keep going and just going back to what I said earlier, get out of your way. I think oftentimes we don't believe in ourselves and we get in our way ourselves, but don't be afraid of failure. Let your desires be greater than your fears. And ultimately, you're going to grow in that way. If it feels uncomfortable, it's because you're growing. So do not stay in comfort zones, really expand yourself and really take those risks. And the reward will be really great for you. That's my advice for everyone today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the week and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mauri. For our viewers, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion with Mauri Garcia and that you'll join us next month for another leadership speaker series talk. Please follow us on social media if you are using it or are into that to get the latest updates for events. You can find us at GCCAZ Career Services on Instagram to be in the know. With that, we will sign off and look forward to seeing everyone at our next speaker series in November. Thank you.
Thank you.